is 7:11, and we're starting a little bit late because we had closed session.
What?
It's call to order, please.
Mike O'Neill.
Here.
Mary Beer.
Here.
Councilmember Beckmeyer.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Martin.
Here.
Mayor Vaterlaus.
Here. And salute to the flag, led by me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And do we have a closed session report? Thank you. Next is the consent calendar. Is there anyone who would like to remove anything from the consent calendar, public or council?
Hold on, I think there was something I wanted to ask.
Yep. I want to comment on number 9.
Me
too. And number 6. Please.
Number 16.
Is there someone who would like to make a motion to approve all items except 6, 9, and 16?
I move to accept all consent agenda items except 6, 9, and 16.
I second.
Please vote. And that passes 5-0. Okay, number 6.
Yeah, on packet page 53, it says, "The insurance carrier will be evaluating the city's reimbursement coverage," and that says it again. On packet page 54, it says, "There are sufficient funds to cover this agreement amount under the plan Local Drainage Fund 19, which would be reimbursed by the city's insurance carrier after evaluating the city's coverage." And my question is, when will it be evaluated?
Good evening, Councilmember Beer. Sam Bautista, your Deputy Director of Public Works. To answer that question, right now we are in not negotiation, but we are talking to our insurance carrier so that they can determine our coverages, and hopefully we'll get an answer from them within the next couple weeks. We've been playing phone tag with them.
And is it possible that it wouldn't be reimbursed?
The possibility is we should be getting reimbursed, but we don't know the limit.
Okay, thank you.
Number 9.
Okay, so item 9 is we are rejecting all bids for the Cabrillo School Crossing Improvement Project and directing staff to rebid the project. I just wanted to point that out to the public that our bids came in well over what the actual estimate was. So unfortunately, the crossing is not going to be ready for the school year. No. We had hoped that it would be, but we're going to go back out to bid. They came well over $100,000 at each bid. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 6 of them were submitted. And so I just want to let everyone know we want it to happen as soon as possible. Obviously, that intersection is very important, and hopefully we're going to be making that happen closer to the end of this year. Does that sound more like it, Sam?
That is correct. We will be rebidding this project in the fall.
Okay, thanks. That's all I have.
Thank you. And number 16.
Hi, I did have notes, but I forgot them and left them home. But basically, this is in regards to changing the zoning ordinance and amending ordinances for the health clubs. And I'll wait till our zoning expert gets to the podium.
Hi.
Hi, Tina, thank you. My main issue when I brought this up was the fact that we were having a lot of commercially zoned properties being put in for service type of things that do not bring in sales tax revenue. And that was my main concern. And this adoption covers health and fitness, gyms type of thing. Can this be, okay, what is the goal? Let me kind of backpedal a little bit. The goal, we're having a study session, I think it's August 28th or 23rd, 29th, something like that, with the Planning Commission. 27. What is the goal of that meeting?
So the goal of that meeting, first let me introduce myself. My name is Tina Wermeister. I'm the planning director. And the goal of that meeting is to report back to the council. I know most of you were at one, if not all, of our 5 community meetings, but basically to report back what we've heard from the community, and also get your feedback on some specific items that we need to move forward in drafting the general plan.
Okay, so my questions tonight won't interfere with that then. My concern is that we're having a lot of commercial spaces go and non-taxable businesses go in there. By non-taxable, I mean they aren't generating sales tax revenue or use taxes or whatever. Can this be expanded so that like conditional use permits are needed in commercial areas for any non-tax revenue generating business? Or could you put restrictions in visitor serving areas? Like the best example I could think of is in Rockaway. There's that building on the corner, one street level with windows on the street. 2 of them are real estate, the other one's a mortgage broker, but the one that's the most visitor serving is in the corner where a visitor can't even see it. Can you put zoning changes in that we could amend the ordinance so that you need a conditional use permit for those in a visitor serving area, non-visitor serving businesses need a conditional use permit? And
Right.
am I making myself clear? Or?
I think so. So the way that, the understanding I had walking away from when this item was introduced is that the council wanted a broader review of this kind of visitor serving versus not visitor serving in general, and that we would bring back to you when implementing the general plan, and maybe have a policy somewhere in the general plan that either via some of the specific placement that you just described, or a percentage of uses within a certain area, that it be monitored so that the area stays largely visitor serving, but also there is some service use that supports all of those businesses, but that it's not tipped in the balance so that it's basically becomes a non-visitor serving. So that's what I heard from that meeting, the direction I took away, and what we would be working on in our policy documents coming forward.
Oh, okay, so I read this and I took it to mean we were amending it for health and fitness, but I wanted to do exactly what you just said, is expand it so that we have some control over getting revenue for the city and visitor serving areas.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm clear then. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying it for me, Tina, and you did it right.
Thank you.
So I guess I move to approve the remaining, what were they, 6,
9, and 16.
6, 9, and 16 on the
And
consent
is
calendar.
there a second?
Second.
Please vote. And that passes 5-0. I would like to introduce everyone to Elizabeth Brooks, who is sitting between Sarah and Kevin. She's shadowing tonight because she will be taking over at a few future meetings. If everyone could.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Hello. Thank you for being here. Next is oral communications. I have a few cards. I only have 3. So the first one is Tim Blanchard, followed by Therese Dyer and Wynn Gersich. And I'm sorry if I said that. Okay. Tim.
Good evening, council. I come tonight to lodge a complaint regarding code enforcement. And what I'm lodging my complaint about is that the area of Fairway Park was singled out. There was 15 code enforcement letters sent out, and my real complaint is the fact that my address is at the bottom of the letter, and that's fine when you send it to me, but you sent it to 3 of my neighbors that you also sent the code enforcement letter to, and they came to my home, very angry. This could have resulted into a physical altercation. I could have received vandalism upon my property, and this was a very grave mistake by your code enforcement officer. And I feel that this was done in retaliation to my opposition to the city council, or previous city council, and the planning department due to the sea level rise plan and managed retreat. And that's the gist of it. You're very wrong in doing that. 1 letter would have been an accident. 3 letters to 3 different people was not an accident. Thank you.
Thank you. Therese, followed by Wynn and then Tiger.
Good evening, City Council, members of the public. I'm here to recognize a very good organization and make people aware of an organization called Honor Flight, who takes World War II Korean veterans and Vietnam veterans on a trip of a lifetime to Washington, D.C. at no cost to them. It's to transport America's heroes to visit the memorials built in their honor. And they are situated in San Jose, Monterey area. And I would just like to thank Jim Bonner, a retired fireman, who told me about this organization. I put my application in, and I was accepted. I was the only woman with 25 other veterans from all 3 wars. And I'd like to also recognize Judy Petraeus from Moss Beach, who put this lovely book together for each individual with all the photographs in Washington, D.C., of the memorials in the Smithsonian and all the activities that we took there. And I'd also like to thank Carolyn Wong, my escort, and Gail Belmont, who met us at the airport coming back and presented each one of us with a quilt of honor. Her quilt is now in the Smithsonian Institute. I also like to thank the team leader, Mac Weiharzer, and the flight nurse, Dee Scott, and the assistant leader, Tom Myers. I can't say enough about this organization for being a nonprofit because they don't ask for money, and a lot of people are not aware of this organization, and I'm here to make people aware of them. So if there are any other veterans that are interested, they can go to www.honorflightbayarea.org. Their phone number is 408-925-1999. And besides going on a trip, they can also volunteer or donate their time in some other way. And then the other thing that I'd like to address the council with, that while I was gone to Washington, D.C. and had such a wonderful time with police escorts and everybody just greeted us tremendously there, I came home to find out that my 14th Amendment was violated by one of the police officers here. And I'm getting stories from my neighbor who had some vandalism done to his car, and obviously my house, my door was opened a little bit, and he opened it further, which he had no right to do. And after I interviewed him, his story just does not stick, and I wanted to really speak to the police chief, but he never returned my calls. Mr. Spanheimer did, but I will follow this up on another time because I know my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you. Wynn.
Good evening. My name is Wynn Gersich. I now live in Hayward, but I used to live in Pacifica, on Park Pacifica. Anyway, I'm here tonight because I used to go to the Boswell Water Boards, and I know that Pacifica was one of the first toilet-to-tap cities. And what's very upsetting right now is that there was a bill passed in 2017, and the public did not know about it. It was AB 967, October 17th, 2017, and Governor Brown signed this to liquefy dead bodies and pour them down the drain. So they call this alkaline hydrolysis, but they're going to cook the bodies at 350 degrees, and it's a pH of 11, and they're going to melt the flesh down to the bone, grind the bones up, give you that as the cremation, and they're going to pour this down the drain. So can you imagine, at 350 degrees in lye, the chloramine ate up the water pipes, and the fluorosilicic acid for fluoride, but the lye in the sewer lines at that hot, if we had an earthquake, this is an accident waiting to happen. You know, if we had an earthquake, the sewer lines are going to break because of this. And there's other ways to go green so that we don't put smoke up in the air if they don't want to do a fire cremation. In Sweden, they actually freeze-dry dead bodies, and they crunch them up into like coffee crystal size. They put them in an urn under a tree and put a tag on it. Why can't we do that? Why do we have to cannibalize everybody? Plus the fact, Dr. Wynne Parker, who wrote Chloramine Causes Collateral Health Damage, said we should have the right to vote what goes in our food and our water. And we didn't have the right to vote on the peninsula and stuff when they added the ammonia. But they knew it was going to cause stroke, so they added stroke units on the Mills Peninsula Hospital, huge. They knew it was going to kill more people's kidneys, so they put a kidney dialysis in every city. And now they're claiming that this is safe to liquefy dead bodies in lye and pour it down the drain. And you're going to need a chemical to neutralize this. And what if they don't get the right dose? When we take a bath in, is it going to eat our skin? When they added the chloramine to the drinking water, I used to work in Millbrae, and 18 of my clients broke out in the same rashes I had. I'm going to put this on public record, and I'm going to give some other papers here, but we need to get organized. We need to sign petitions, call your local state assembly and senators, and get this stopped. And the answer is do what Sweden does to go green, because we shouldn't be cannibalizing anybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Tiger?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Council, Community. I am Tiger Jazz, Twirl's Big Stick of Pacifica. I had something to, I still have something to say. I had something else to say on top of that when I first walked in, and I don't even know what audience I'm talking to right now, so I think that a big chunk of what's been swirling around my head is that there's been way too much heaviness in the world, in the country, in the community. Bad news is easy to see everywhere somebody looks. So I'm going to disregard for a moment the story I planned on telling. And I'm going to say this weekend there was this beautiful music festival in Golden Gate Park. It was wonderful. Last night Paul Simon played. Bob Weir of the Grateful Dead played with him for a song, The Boxer. One of his encores was an American tune. A great song about how hard it is to live and be alive in general and follow one's heart. And yet ultimately somehow it's worth it when one goes with the heart level. Maybe I'll tell that other story some other time. But I think we need good news. And we need to somehow remember in a moment in which it's inconvenient and uncomfortable to express a bit of kindness, even though it's even counterintuitive. Anyway, the other thing I came to say was my new book is written, it's done, it's published. Still working on the agent-publisher part of it because it's self-published as of now, but it is available at Florey's and online at Amazon and barnesandnoble.com. Chronicles of the Angels of Eden, Volume 1, Part 1. There will be a book signing at Florey's on September 7th between 2 and 4. I will remind you all again in a couple of weeks. If you order a copy in advance or go buy a copy in advance and read it, you can ask me in real time what the hell I was thinking about any given part that might be hopefully interesting to somebody. And otherwise, I'll be happy just to sign and maybe read a little bit in the moment when the time comes on September 7th. And I hope anybody decides to pick this up and check it out and the goal was that somebody gets something out of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that closes the oral communications unless I see someone with their hand up who would like to speak. Seeing none, that does close the oral communications. And now council communications.
Can I go
Deirdre?
ahead?
It's been a while since we've been up here, and a lot has happened, so I'm not going to say what everyone else is going to say. I'm just going to talk about the fishing tournament that we had here in Pacifica in early July, which was around the last time we met. And it was put on by an organization called More Than Fishing. It's a local Daly City guy who created this fishing group. And more than 200 entrants came from all over the U.S., believe it or not. There were some really good prizes, but they happened to be out here the day that we did our monthly cleanup at Sharp Park. And we built some really good relationships, and they reached out to put on a beach cleanup, and all those folks went out and had some food in Pacifica afterwards, and I brought a lot of people here, and I just wanted to thank the organization More Than Fishing, and I hope that they come back every year. That's it.
Mary?
Okay, sure. Hello, everybody. It's good to be back. It was really good to have a break as well. So I needed time because I moved, and luckily I was able to find a place. And not everybody is that lucky. And so I want to urge people to please, if you are having a hard time staying in your home or you need a place to live, please contact the Pacifica Resource Center. They can help you with anything from a Band-Aid to your mortgage. So they're there to help everyone. They helped me, and I'm so very grateful. So I've been to a lot of things in the past month or so. I was honored to attend the swearing in of 3 of our police officers. It was a beautiful event to see how the law enforcement family, they just take care of each other, and it was really beautiful. And then I got to witness one of those officers participate in the county-wide full-scale active shooter training that happened in Mills High School. And what was so incredible about that training was we were able to see our officers. There was the officer I was speaking of and 4 or 5 other officers. Actually, we got to watch them come in, create teams with the fire and the medics, and act right on point, and it was just an amazing thing to be a part of. One other part of the training was training people how to give the message and how to work together with city officials and law enforcement and our elected officials to get the right kind of message out at the right time during stressful situations. So I think that's actually really important training for us to have. I was sworn in to the board of Peninsula Clean Energy as an alternate for Councilperson Martin, and I attended my very first meeting. And for those who don't know, Peninsula Clean Energy was launched by San Mateo County and all 20 of its cities to help the environment through cleaner energy. I attended the City Council of Cities dinner that we hosted here in Pacifica. It was lovely at the golf course. I recently met with some young people from Youth Leadership Institute who are advocating for a smoke-free multi-unit housing ordinance. It was really good meeting with them. I expressed my concerns about creating any ordinance that could affect someone's housing and could be used as a tool for eviction, and so I posed those questions to them. I will be posing those questions again when the ordinance comes up. I've spoken to a lot of community members. There was an email, and then there were people who approached me that people are concerned that PG&E is cutting down trees without replanting. So I'm wondering if there's any way that we can gather information about, if that's happening and if they're cutting down trees and if they have a policy to replant. So I wanted to make sure to bring that up here. Let's see. And last but least, I really want to take just a minute to encourage our community to respect and support the volunteer task force members who are working on the Unhoused Pacifica Task Force. These are people from all sectors of the community who have volunteered to participate in seeking solutions. And so I'm going to thank them for that. And I just urge everyone to respect them and support them as they're taking on this really hard job. So, thanks.
Sue?
I took the opportunity with our break to get away for a couple of long weekends, but between those times away, there were a number of city activities that I participated in, one of which was the last Plan Pacifica meeting, and the other of which was these weren't city per se, but city council have been invited to attend the grand reopening of a couple of businesses in town, Green Enchilada, and then we celebrated the 60th anniversary of Pacifica Play School as a daycare in Pacifica. That's older than the city, right? Or almost. That's pretty amazing. And the actual permit from 1959 is on the wall. It was really cool. So that was super fun. Another thing that happened that was a lot of work, and I really want to acknowledge city workers who volunteered their time. It was not part of their job to come out and support Relay for Life, which is the American Cancer Society fundraiser that we do in Pacifica every year around the third weekend of July. And once again, they did us proud. Absolutely amazing, amazing crew that was out. And not only current employees, but retirees that turned out to help the community and raise funds. So that was just wonderful. Went to the police swearing in. That was also great. That's the first one we've had, huh, Mary? I know that was neat. And the Council of Cities dinner, I want to commend Mayor Vaterlos for doing a really great job.
With your help.
Well, yeah, a little bit, but we had a fabulous speaker, and it was, the dead middle of July. So getting other council members from other cities to turn up for a meeting isn't always that easy, but upon departure, after the speaker that Mayor Vaterlos brought in, I heard people literally say, this was the best speaker we've ever had. So that's, no offense to any other speakers, but that was great. And we took the opportunity to inform our council members from over the Hill about things like sustainability. We were able to offer them a little packet that our Public Works had put together that includes a wooden spoon and fork and pair of chopsticks, I think, and also a metal straw so that they could begin spreading the word in their communities as we have done here around sustainability. And so that was super fun. Then there's just been a lot of meetings with Public Works staff. Thank you for educating me, continuing to educate me. I had questions about trees. There were a lot of questions about trees that came to us that specifically had anything to do with my exact work here, but I realized I needed a broader understanding because I've never served on PB&R Commission, which is the group that hears tree appeals. And I have never served on the Planning Commission, which is the group that sometimes has conditions of approval that require or necessitate applicants to file a request to remove a heritage tree. So I needed to understand better how all those different departments interact with each other around this issue, and I'm still learning, but it was very valuable to me. Similarly, I asked for some time with planning to understand some conditions of approval for projects that have been proposed in West Shore Park. I had a grave concern about projects that had issues around sea level rise, and citizens were bringing up very big concerns about sea level rise with these projects, and I needed to understand all of the issues involved in looking at faults in the ocean and tsunami zones, and there's just a lot to the decisions that are made. I want people to understand the deep work that is done to come up with the recommendations and the work that's done by our commissions and committees and ourselves and our staff to get these things done on behalf of our citizens. The last thing I'm going to say is educating my fellow council members. Last Wednesday night was the Beautification Advisory Committee, and there was a public hearing during that time about our first mural project under our recently approved mural guidelines. The artist came and presented his design, and I really want to thank all of the folks who are members of that advisory group, the subcommittee of the Beautification Advisory Committee, who really helped out with that. Specifically, Cindy Abbott has been extremely helpful, and Ginny Jaquith extremely helpful with that, and Linda Jonas. They gave a lot of time to that effort. And the artist, his name is Jeffrey Wong, and he did the mural that's at the Boys and Girls Club, which is the whales and all of that. And so the subject of this mural is the Portola Ohlone Discovery Site, and getting ready for that celebration this fall. It's been a lot of work on the behalf of the Department of Parks, Beaches, and Recreation, and I know Director Perez has been leading that effort. So it's exciting that we're going to have a mural on the community center. The design incorporates the native flora and fauna you'll recognize, as I did in the mock-up that he gave and showed us. Lindemar, you'll see Pedro Point, I mean, obviously with no houses on it. You see the Discovery Site on another part of the mural, and you can see Mount Diablo off in the distance, but you see what it looked like then. And Jeffrey did an amazing amount of research, including working with the last known descendant of folks from our exact area. And while it's all Ohlone, there's different triblets or bands within that. And this individual was very helpful in imparting and conveying the oral stories that had been told to him, helping with things like what kind of clothing and how should the figures appear. And it was just super well done. And I think everyone will be really excited to see it. And so the goal is to have that work begin soon, and it will take about a month. So if you see Jeffrey out there doing work, you'll know why. And the discussion and the unveiling and completion will be in time for the November 2nd celebration.
And what wall is it going on?
So when you're looking facing Highway 1, that wall, but it also has a part of the design that will curve or cut around to the wall that faces onto Crespi. So it's going to be beautiful.
So no more tree, Mike, on the wall. Okay.
Yeah, so any other questions, please let me know. Thanks.
Mike?
So I drew the short straw because while Councilmember Beckmeyer was at Economic Development, seeing beautiful murals, meeting with positive people that were really excited about what they're going to do and add a lot to the city, I was at the airport roundtable. And yes, I know, short straw. Anyhow, there are some things that we really need to be aware of that are happening at the airport, and I talked to Kevin about it, and this is kind of also to tell my fellow council members, if we can all nod our head in agreement, because the FAA is now looking at allowing SSTs to fly again. And for those of you that are not old enough to remember, SSTs are supersonic transports. And when they go to fast speed, they create sonic booms. And they usually are not allowed to do Mach 1 over land, but they do it over oceans. And I could imagine where the sonic booms will happen in Pacifica. So they also, one of the standards they are looking at doing is reducing the standards back to the levels from 1970 instead of today's standards. So I have not had a chance to do some research, and there is a website which I forwarded to the city manager, and I imagine the city manager, maybe the city attorney, and myself will be composing a letter in opposition, if that's okay with the rest of the council. and move that. And I would also like if we could all send it to our different networks in town to warn them this was happening. And the other contentious issue, because the meeting actually went longer than it's supposed to, is because we started discussing noise monitors. And the meeting before, the airport said that there was no urgency, there was nothing, had to be done right then about noise monitors. They then came back at this meeting and told us they've signed a contract. And so they are getting some more noise monitors, but I was talking and mentioning that they need to put the noise monitors where the current flight patterns are, not where they were originally, because just by the number of people that have said, I hear fewer planes, and the number of people that are saying they're hearing more planes, there seems to be a change. And so they haven't quite figured out the procedures, but I passed the information on to Kevin. And Pacifica, if we want to move our monitor and or purchase another monitor, it's going to cost us around $30,000. And I don't know if, that's something that's going to have to be a council decision. And then the airport would want the council and or the city manager to decide where it's going to be placed. So I can't really tell you what the procedures are because they haven't been decided yet, but it's something else that's going to be on the radar. But the main issue is the closing date for comments regarding supersonic transports is August 26th or 27th. So it's looming right now. So that's why we can't put it on an agenda. So anyhow, that's the big report from the airport roundtable. I also attended general plan, economic development. I missed the economic development committee because I was on vacation. I did speak to the Rotary about city issues. The big questions they had were RV and homeless, and business development, and forgive me, but I forget what the third one is because it was 7 in the morning.
I think it was the voting,
Oh, district voting, yes. Okay, airport, and then I also was there with my fellow council members at the swearing in of the officers, and I also did attend the active shooter training at Mills. So that's my report. I want to go see the mural.
Sue, I forgot something.
Okay, go
I want to thank the people of Pedro Point for the chili cook-off. I got to be a judge. It was so much fun, and the place was packed, so they do such a good job about bringing people in and raising money, so kudos to them.
I have a long list, but I'll try to do highlights. I attended Plan Pacifica. I also met with several cities in San Mateo about starting a trade association for trade from Mexico and China, and how Pacifica relates to that would be to bring in people for tourism, not necessarily business. I attended the City and County Association of Governments meetings, nothing there. Flood Sea Level Rise Resiliency Agency, Relay for Life, the grand opening of the Taco Bell Cantina, where we had people from everywhere who came to Pacifica. Council member Beckmeyer went and asked every person in the restaurant where they came from. Not one of them was from Pacifica. There were at least 200 people in line that day waiting just to get in. The grand reopening of Green Enchilada was great. I went to the Sanchez Art Center to the Ohlone Plein Air, which is outdoor painting exhibition, and I got a lot of information. Deirdre was there too. I attended the Harvey Milk Terminal opening. It's pretty amazing, the new terminal. They let in people early that day, and it's huge. The Democrats on election changes. I went to train day at the Little Brown Church. Trips Distillery, a local business, had a film crew from China come in and do just like an advertisement for Trips Distillery to send to China. Sort of an interesting event. The ribbon cutting for the play school. I went to a state roundtable on election administration, which as a council member, there were only about 5 council people there, and the rest of them were all administrators. And it was really an interesting thing, and they talked about district elections and how difficult it's going to be for their administrators. The Council of Cities in Pacifica, I did meet with a few people from Fairway Park to talk about their problems. The active shooter, if anyone can go to an active shooter training, we do have trainings provided by our police department. It was an incredible event to watch it, and it makes my hair stand up now, and it was weeks ago. So it was really an adrenaline issue, and we got to see every step of what happens in the active shooter, down to bodies laying on the ground. The dog surfing contest, I was there most of the day. They estimated 2,000 people came to Pacifica for the dog surfing contest. It was huge. I talked to many of the dog owners. They love coming here because it's a novelty for us, and they said they just love being here because everyone's happy. And on that happy note, and the dogs were so happy doing what they wanted to get in the water, and they wanted to do it. It was a really good event. I attended the funeral for Cal Hinton, and I'll be talking a little bit about him later. The chili cook-off I went to, the officer swearing in. Most of the calls I've gotten in this past month have been RV issues. I get them about every other day, phone calls addressing problems with the RVs. And I know we do have a committee starting, but that's the biggest issue I hear about. We had an event here on Saturday, which I missed because I was out of town, called Walk on Water. And Walk on Water is about taking disabled children and putting them out in the surf and teaching them how to surf. And I would have liked to be here to see it. It sounded like a really incredible event. Wow. So they were happy to come here too, because the people who started Walk on Water were from Pacifica. And she called me ahead to find out about where they could park, because they knew there were going to be a lot of people. I wasn't here, so I don't know. But that seems like a really great event too. Thank you. And now staff communications.
Thank you, Mayor Vaterlos, council members, Kevin Woodhouse, City Manager. I have 3 communications I'd like to provide, and 2 are safety related. I'll start with the non-safety one, just to announce that concerning the San Jose Avenue pedestrian overcrossing, Caltrans is going to be doing a ribbon cutting. At this point, it's scheduled for August 28th at 11 a.m. That's an event that's open to the public to celebrate the completion, and they were waiting until after they had finished all the landscaping, et cetera. So that's August 28th, 11 a.m., and more details to come. We'll be pushing that information out. It'll be, again, open to the public. The 2 safety items I wanted to mention, I'll start with the active shooter trainings were mentioned by council members, and certainly, once again, after Gilroy and El Paso and Dayton, these types of events weigh heavily on our minds. And our police department, public safety, first responders for a long time have trained about how to respond to these incidents. And for a while now, we've been providing trainings to community members about active shooter response. There's one this Wednesday night. It's completely sold out. And there are more to come, and by going to the police department's Facebook page, you can see that information and sign up. So I encourage that all community members that are able to take these trainings. In addition, and this is very important to me and to our community and to the organization, the police department and human resources in the city are teaming up to provide trainings to all city employees. And again, we're often out there on the front lines at events or what have you, and so it's an important awareness and to know what to do in this type of situation. And so I'm happy that we are doing that training, that it's available to community members, and that we're doing it for employees. The other that I wanted to mention is that you will start seeing, we're in the process of installing them, new beach warning signs in Pacifica. And there's a new one that's right out here, and we're not complete installing all of them, but we have designed a new sign, and we'll be putting those up. And in addition, we've created, and this is fairly unique because based on our research, we didn't really find this type of resource from other agencies, a beach safety tips brochure or flyer. This is what it looks like. It's half the size of an 8.5 by 11 on cardstock. And this safety tips, talking about rip currents and other practices on beaches, provides good information and has been distributed to all of the hotels in Pacifica with the intention that they are going to have these as the regular information in all of the hotel rooms. And so in memory, as you know, earlier in this year, a young man named Tyler Collins drowned in Pacifica, and we've been working on enhancing our signage through this process. And I did speak recently with Jeannie Collins, Tyler's mom, and she was very appreciative of our efforts related to that. So I wanted to announce that, and that completes my communications.
Thank you. On to public hearings. And the first public hearing is to introduce, waive the first reading, and read by title only the ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Pacifica amending sections 1-4.01, 1-4.02, and 2.1-133 of the Pacifica Municipal Code to govern appeal and council review of decisions of commissions and committees." That was a long title.
Yeah, good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. Lawrence Enriquez, Engineering Division. Back in May of this year, Council approved the Keep Pacifica Beautiful Through Public Art Program policy and along with the implementation guidelines. At that meeting, Council requested a provision be added to allow Council with the ability to call up a beautification advisory committee decision regarding public art. The council request prompted the city attorney's office to recommend making formal amendments to the municipal code to allow for a right of appeal for any decision of the BAC and to allow council to call up a decision. Therefore, the following Unicode sections were revised, as you just mentioned. Section 1-4.01 regarding appeals was revised to include the BAC. Section 1-4.02, the title of that particular section was changed from time limit for filing to filing an appeal, and that basically gives the appellant 10 days to formally make an appeal, and also there's an appeal fee that will be established by resolution through council. And thirdly, section 2-1.33, council call-up of decisions. It was revised to include, once again, BAC, and there were other minor changes added to that particular section as well. So.
Do any council have any questions?
No, I mean, we talked about this at length already.
We have anyone from the public? Seeing no one. That was quick. We'll bring it back to council.
I make a motion that we approve item number 17. Introduce, waive the first reading, and read by title only the ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance of the City Council, City of Pacifica amending sections 1-4.01, 1-4.02, and 2-1.133 of the Pacifica Municipal Code to govern appeal and council review of decisions of commissions and committees, and finding adoption of the ordinance exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA."
Is there a second?
I second.
Please vote. And that passes 5-0. On to,
Easy.
we've discussed it many times. On to council consideration, the updated economic development strategic plan for Pacifica for fiscal year 2019 to 20.
Great. While Economic Development Manager Myers is getting set up, I'll kick off this item by saying what you have before you is an economic development strategic plan. And just to provide context, since the city years ago established the Economic Development Manager position, and economic development efforts are very important to the city, back in 2015, we began with more of kind of a work plan of items that economic development would be addressing. But what this type of strategic plan does is it puts all of those different kinds of efforts that economic development addresses into the context of why is this important, what is the definition of economic development, what are the core principles behind economic development, and in providing all of that background information, the plan then goes into the more specific programs and projects that Mr. Myers leads and supports, and all of the various important projects in the city that have an economic development component are made of. So again, this is a, not a, I guess tonight before you, it's not a discussion of all the great economic development ideas under the sun that we could potentially do. It's taking all of the efforts that we currently do and putting them into a context, into a strategic plan, so that it's understood how and why they're important to the city. And with that introduction, I'll turn it over to Mr. Myers.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Thomas Myers, Economic Development Manager. I'm presenting the staff report for item number 18, which is adopt a resolution approving the updated Economic Development Strategic Plan for Pacifica for fiscal year 2019 and 20. This brief presentation will cover, number one, the Economic Development Strategic Plan summary, the City Council goals and priorities for economic development for this fiscal year, the definition of economic development, the goals of economic development, how to apply these economic development principles in Pacifica, and the implementation of these economic development goals. The Economic Development Strategic Plan addresses 4 goals for economic development in the city of Pacifica. The first is to attract new businesses to vacant commercial sites. Number 2, assist new businesses with the permit and development process. Number 3, retain existing businesses to maintain the city's sales tax base. And number 4, implement specific strategic economic development goals for Pacifica as adopted by the City Council. The primary City Council goal that's supported by this economic development plan is fiscal sustainability, which includes investing in economic development to increase revenues, funding a reserve and emergency fund, and being well prepared for grant opportunities. Economic development indirectly supports numerous other City Council goals by sustaining, if not increasing, city tax revenues, which in turn allows future resource allocation flexibility to support activities that fulfill other City Council goals. The City Council priorities adopted for this fiscal year, which are directly related to economic development, include, number 1, completing an update to the economic development plan and to continue economic development efforts, as well as continuing other ongoing priority projects, including 2212 Beach Boulevard Hotel site and Palmetto Avenue promotion and improvements, and the Street Banner program recently adopted by Council. The International Economic Development Council defines economic development as a program, group of policies, or activity that seeks to improve the economic well-being and quality of life for a community by creating and/or retaining jobs that facilitate growth and provide a stable tax base. Economic development influences the direction of private sector investment toward opportunities that can lead to sustained economic development growth in a city. In turn, this growth provides opportunities for employers, income for the labor force, and tax revenues for the city. The purpose of economic development is to increase the tax base of communities in order to provide higher quality public service to its citizens and to diversify the economic base and thereby cushion the community against economic changes and shocks. In Pacifica, the functions of economic development fall into three basic categories. The first, economic development serves as the point of inquiry for new and existing businesses and for beginning and building business relationships. Number two, designing and leading programs and projects that are directly related to economic development and projects that support the fundamental strategies of economic development. And thirdly, supporting other departments and citywide programs and projects that are indirectly related to economic development. In Pacifica, economic development activities are designed to enhance existing commercial districts, to create quality shopping and dining experiences, and encourage activities and development that attract visitors, tourists, and local residents. One of the primary functions of an economic development program is to respond to economic development inquiries. These inquiries come from developers, current potential business owners, property owners, community organizations, and residents. These inquiries reach economic development in a variety of ways, through phone calls, emails, letters, drop-ins at public counters, internal inquiries from city council, city staff, city commissions and committees, and community and government organizations. Given Pacifica's limited economic development resources, economic development will continue to engage the business community, develop tools to assist new and existing businesses, and provide information and access to resources. Baseline economic development activities include, number one, business attraction to targeted commercial destinations, business retention to maintain the city's business clusters which support the city's sales tax base, business expansion to keep Pacifica businesses in Pacifica, and continuing to provide support to the Economic Development Committee in the implementation of the work plan approved by City Council for this fiscal year. Some of the economic development programs in the strategic plan include the How to Start a Business in Pacifica brochure, the Shop Pacifica, Visit Pacifica marketing campaign in conjunction with the Economic Development Committee, providing economic development assistance to the Planning Department on potential development projects, and the implementation of the recently council-approved Street Banners program. The primary economic development projects for this fiscal year include, again, the 2212 Beach Boulevard Hotel site and the Palmetto Avenue improvements and promotion. Economic development will continue to provide support to other citywide programs directed by other city departments, including, some of those include the specific plan for Sharp Park neighborhood and the implementation of the sustainable food serviceware requirements for local businesses. Our recommendation this evening is for council to adopt a resolution approving the updated economic development strategic plan for Pacifica for fiscal year 2019-20. And staff is available to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Mary? No. Okay.
I have a question.
Deirdre?
Thanks, Thomas. That was great. Can you just talk to me a little bit about the role of business in disaster response, coordination of the business community response in the event of a natural disaster? What are some of the things that go along with that?
One of the things that I want to try and accomplish this year is to, when we get to the point where there is a disaster, before there's a disaster, to be able to talk to businesses about what we might need from them in advance, so that when it comes time for us to either get resources or products or services, that those are already thought about in advance in terms of cost, in terms of how it's going to be delivered, and for those businesses in terms of how it's going to be paid for, so that they have some assurance that at some point they're going to get paid, but at the same time, City of Pacifica is already in place to get some of those services and products that we'll need in case of a disaster.
That's great. I'm glad you're thinking of it. Thanks.
I have a question about this site, 2212 Beach Boulevard. Are we currently doing any entitlement at all for this site, so that when we do go out to bids from developers, that we have things in place? And what can you tell me about the timeline for that?
Yeah, and I can have Planning Director Weremeister also speak to this, but a major component of that is our local coastal program update, and as well as the Sharp Park specific plan process. And then Director Weremeister can speak more specifically to the components of that. I'll also add that there's some other related moving parts that we're working on, such as odor control improvements related to the pump station and projects like that that will make the site more attractive.
Thank you.
Hi. So after the last unsuccessful RFP for development of the site, it was determined that part of, not all, but part of the problem that we were having is that developers felt that the number of entitlements that they would have to get going through the Coastal Commission was a little risky. And so the process going forward, their thought process is that through the general plan and specific plan process and LCP, that we would designate this site appropriately for the city's goals to develop a hotel, so that the city would be taking that through our process, doing environmental review as well as Coastal Commission review, so that that at least those initial preliminary components of the entitlements would be completed, and hopefully make it more attractive to hotel developers.
Sue?
In regard to that, then the timeline for that involves submitting our local coastal program mitigation strategies or sea level rise adaptation strategies. That piece has to be put in place first?
That
or
is
that
part
all
of
concurrently part of it?
It's all concurrently part of the LCP.
Okay.
So I believe, I don't remember what product, I'm sorry, Thomas, that I was reading, but in one of the products it says that the RFP, the next RFP for this site would be concurrent with when that project ends in the middle of 2020.
Okay. Along that line then, I guess what I'm concerned about is something you opened with when you said we wanted to get these entitlements together in advance to assist potential bidders because it was perceived as being kind of risky. So are you referring to financial risk to them to have to hire all these specific engineers and go through that entire process, each of those bidders themselves? Or what were you referring to?
Because the staff, we can never predict what a council or the Coastal Commission is going to do. So what I meant by risk is that type of risk for the developer, so that the developer takes a lot of money to prepare an environmental impact report and put together the plans necessary. And so even our own council, who's been very supportive of the project, we can never say 100% that we can predict what our council is going to do. So, but when you have legislative actions in place, there is more certainty for the developer. So that was the type of risk I was speaking to.
Thank you.
Mary? Sorry.
Thank you, Thomas, so much. I really appreciate it. It's so well thought out, and I really appreciate the key milestones because you can really see, how everything fits together. So thank you so much for that. I do have a couple questions. There's a piece about the vacant commercial sites. How many are there? Do you know offhand?
Vacant?
Vacant, yeah.
Not very many. Most of
Not very many.
the commercial sites that we have in Pacifica are existing commercial sites where businesses are either moving in or moving out at some time. Vacant commercial sites would include mixed development opportunities. For example, on Palmetto, there are a couple of lots that are in sort of the process of developing mixed uses specifically for Palmetto, and there are more of those that'll be turning over in Pacifica in the near future as well.
Okay. Because I guess I was wondering if you had like a target number of vacancies you wanted to fill, but,
All of them, yes.
oh, that's a good target.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. The other question I had was about the brochure, and do you have an outreach plan for that?
When the brochure and the information that doesn't actually fit on the brochure, so there's a lot of information that we got both from Economic Development Committee, some from city councils, some from organizations and individual business owners. What we decided to do was put the main points into the brochure and then do another document called additional resources. Both of those will be available on the city's website. The brochures and the additional documents can also be printed. And as those documents change or need to be updated, you can just change the information on the website, and then they'll be available as PDFs for individuals to print. But part of the plan is to use some of our currently existing city kiosks to put information in, as well as on the public counters, and also to distribute some of those to various organizations, Chamber of Commerce, realtors, and whoever
Maybe
would
outside
request.
chambers too.
Yes,
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you so much.
sure.
Deirdre?
That was from before.
I read it and understand it, and, you know, I'm the liaison for the Economic Development Committee as well as Sue, so.
I just want to say I appreciate your work, and I appreciate the more specificity that's in this plan than we've seen before. Now it was more of a work plan kind of model before, but in light of the work that the Economic Development Committee is doing and breaking down very specific portions of their work plan this year and working in subcommittee fashion toward that, I think it really provides an opportunity for that work to come to fruition and there to be a vessel, a vehicle. With Thomas's support, we have the opportunity to work with people and respond to inquiries. And Mayor Vaterlos mentioned about Trip Distillery and the Chinese film crew that was here, and they actually were doing a 2 or 3 day tour of Pacifica. They hit a number of places, interviewed small business owners, had citizens, interviewed the mayor, and I understand that it is going to be developed into 3 pieces that are going to be on a Chinese language television station, and the pieces themselves are going to be 15 to 20 minutes long each. So when I first heard about it, I thought, oh, how cool, someone's coming to do a 30-minute commercial about Pacifica. And it actually seems like it's going to have a further reach and a very targeted reach, which kind of goes to the tourism piece you were speaking about earlier. So I think that was a really great use of the resources that we have available. And there's so many opportunities for the Economic Development Committee and Thomas Myers and the Chamber of Commerce to work together on more of those kind of things.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just going to say is that film crew was actually one brought about by the marketing and public relations firm that is part of the business improvement district for the hotels. And their target market, they interviewed me, and I know they interviewed Sue Vaterlos, and I don't know who else they interviewed on council, but their target market is all Chinese living in the United States and Canada. And that's what that's their target market that they were looking at doing. So that's when you hear people talk about the hotel bid, this is exactly what the hotel bid is supposed to do, is to try to develop the tourism tax, tourism, staying at the hotels, the Airbnbs, and then when the people come to visit us, they are then we are getting the transit occupancy tax and whatever sundry things they do when they go to a restaurant or buy gas or whatever. And there is actually a big market I discovered on a trip when I went to China of Chinese surfers. And when I told them about our dog surfing contest, they were real curious about that. But that's what this Chinese film crew was from the hotel business district. I guess, do we need a motion, or?
I think we do. Yes.
Do we have any public comment? I have no cards. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council.
I'll make a motion
Yeah.
to adopt a resolution approving the updated economic development strategic plan for Pacifica for fiscal year 2019-2020.
I'll second it.
Please vote.
Did I push the wrong button? Oh, yay.
And that passes 5-0.
That was it, right?
We are at the end of the meeting, and we'd like to adjourn the meeting in memory of those lives lost in the most recent mass shootings across our country and those who had to experience it. And also for Cal Hinton, who was a past mayor. He was born November 30th, 1926, and lived till July 22nd, 2019, a nice age of 92. He was a resident since 1954, volunteered as firefighter his first year here in 1955, hired as a firefighter in 1956, and became Pacifica's first fire chief. He served as fire chief in Pacifica from January of 1970 through 1983, when he retired, and he became a city council member in 1996 through 2008. 12 years, and he did serve as mayor, and he was an all-around great, lovable guy, and he's going to be missed here.
I knew Cal for many years. He was always a gentleman, and one of the few people in Pacific I could look eye to eye to, because he was actually quite tall, and he always looked like a judge. But one story he always told me about, he was involved in politics, is he always, whenever he got his Tribune on Wednesday morning, the first thing he did was check the obituaries, because he wanted to see how many votes he lost that week.
Oh, God.
So he had a good sense of humor, too.
Well, and for a person of that age to be hit in the same location in Pacifica twice, in the exact same location, and still lived many, many years after
Broke a
that.
hip,
Yeah,
So,
fish and chips,
that's right.
not a health food.
no, thank you, and we are adjourned.